All right, let's jump right in. We're going to break down a chain of events in the Persian Gulf that honestly didn't just escalate a conflict, they completely redrew the map of modern warfare, turning the very digital world we live in into a front line.
And look, that's not just my opinion. That's a quote from military expert Scott Ritter. It gives you a sense of just how huge this is. We are literally talking about an event on the same scale as the 1973 oil crisis, and the world is only just beginning to grapple with what it all means.
And this is where it all started, not with some shady, covert cyber attack, but with a formal, public announcement. You have a major state actor with serious missile capabilities putting the biggest names in tech on an official hit list. Just think about that for a second. Apple, Google, Amazon, now classified as military objectives.
And it wasn't a bluff. It wasn't just talk. The declaration was followed by kinetic action, carried out with a kind of deliberate precision that sent an absolute shockwave through the worlds of defense and technology.
So the first big question is, what was actually targeted here? This wasn't a series of attacks on military bases or naval fleets. No, the targets were something totally new, something that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time.
Just look at this timeline. You can see a very clear, very deliberate escalation. It kicks off with drone strikes that cause these huge outages, so bad that Amazon actually had to waive a whole month of fees for its customers. Then another hit, and it all leads up to day 32, a direct ballistic missile strike on an Amazon Web Services facility. This was them sending a message. And Amazon was far from alone. This list, it completely erases the line between the boardroom and the war room. I mean, these are the companies that make our phones, run our social media, and power the entire cloud. And now, they're officially in the crosshairs.
So why? What's the justification? Well, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps was very clear about it. They basically argued that these companies provide the surveillance tech, the AI, and the communications networks that make U.S. and Israeli military operations possible. So from their perspective, they weren't attacking civilians, they were just striking a critical piece of the enemy's war machine.
These attacks weren't just a military story. They were the first domino in what became a massive worldwide economic crisis. Let's trace how that ripple effect spread.
The physical damage to Qatar's energy infrastructure was just immense. And we're not talking about a quick fix here. Qatar's own energy minister came out and said it's going to take 3 to 5 years to repair their LNG facilities. That is a massive chunk of the world's energy supply just gone for a very, very long time.
Now, here is a consequence that I guarantee almost nobody saw coming. See, a side effect of damaging LNG facilities is that you also mess up helium production. These strikes instantly vaporized 14% of the entire world's helium supply. And you might be thinking, helium? Like for party balloons? But the reality is way, way more critical. This is where you really see just how interconnected and fragile our global system is. Helium is absolutely essential for making every single advanced semiconductor on the planet. There's no substitute for it. So a 14% shortage, that's a direct threat to chip production everywhere, from Taiwan to Silicon Valley, which means it's a threat to basically every piece of technology we use every day.
The chaos in the Strait of Hormuz had immediate knock-on effects. Fertilizer prices shot up 20%, and pretty soon, analysts started talking about the very real possibility of $200 a barrel oil. You know, these aren't just abstract numbers on a screen. They have real consequences for everybody's wallet. Right? Because that 20% spike in fertilizer, it feeds directly into higher food prices. And for a lot of countries around the world, that's not just an inconvenience, it's a potential disaster. Historically, it's one of the surest triggers for political instability and social unrest. Okay, so this brings us to the real heart of the issue. How in the world did a commercial data center become a military target? Well, the answer lies in this strategy that's been developing for years, the fusion of military and civilian technology. This slide really breaks it down nicely. First, the Pentagon decides to build its big, integrated warfighting cloud system on commercial infrastructure, specifically Amazon's. Second, they start using a commercial AI, a model called Claude, on those same servers for live military targeting. So, from Iran's point of view, Washington had already defined these commercial servers as part of the military kill chain. They just took that logic to its final conclusion.
This comparison really shows the massive paradigm shift we're talking about. The new strategic targets, they aren't just military bases and fuel depots anymore. Now it's data centers, it's the submarine cables that carry the internet, and it's the actual tech companies that run our digital lives. The front line has literally moved from the battlefield to the server farm.
This new reality isn't just changing military playbooks. It's actively breaking the fundamental systems that global commerce is built on, starting with the one that's supposed to cover all the risk, insurance. This reveals a kind of fragility that we just take for granted. Get this. 17 of the huge submarine cables that form the physical backbone of the internet run right through this active war zone. And standard insurance policies? They don't cover acts of war. So when a missile takes out a data center, the loss is total. The entire insurance market for this kind of thing in the Gulf has just vanished. The amount of money at stake here is just staggering. There were over $2 trillion in AI and tech investments planned for the Gulf region. Every single cent of that is now facing a direct, physical threat from a state that has proven it is both willing and able to strike commercial tech infrastructure. And this right here is the key takeaway. This isn't a problem that just goes away when a ceasefire is signed. The damage to supply chains, to insurance markets, to the very trust in these global systems, it's structural. You can't just flip a switch and go back to how things were before. So when you pull all of these threads together, it leaves us with one central and, frankly, deeply unsettling question about the future of war. This quote just perfectly captures the essence of this new era. The battlefield isn't a place you can draw on a map anymore. It's a network. It's defined by the physical location of our digital economy, and that economy is everywhere. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. The Pentagon made a choice to run its war machine on the exact same infrastructure that runs our daily lives. By erasing that line between the military and commercial worlds, it's created a new reality where that line might not exist for any of us. And that's a question we're all going to have to confront now.